Yep, I did it again. And before I talk about exactly what it is, we are going to see what it is, or what it does, rather, live on camera. Because I have not even plugged it in yet. And when you see the condition of it later, when I show it to you, you'll probably wonder why it doesn't work if it does. You'll wonder why it works if it does actually work. Like I said, I haven't tested it yet. So I'm going to turn on this. So that'll give me my monitor. I do need to fire this computer up anyways, but I'll turn it on so at least I'll get my KVM switch. We'll hook it over there, and we'll put our camera on the floor, which is something of a disaster of cables right now. And we will plug her in and see what goes bang. Okay. Nothing seems to have happened yet. It comes on. And the hard drive's not even a streamer. Oh, it posts. Ha ha, look at that. Somebody put Windows 7 on it. It actually works. Well, I don't know if this Windows 7 install works. It's probably full of malware. But if you're wondering what this is the last ever produced Compaq desktop computer for business environments. And by that, I mean, at least I believe this was the last model produced with the Compaq name on it. After this, they went to HP Compaq, and I believe they've since just gone completely to HP. This is a Compaq Evo. It says D510S. It's a D510 small form factor with a Pentium 4 2.4 GHz CPU, 40 gig hard drive. I don't know what the K means. I don't know what the it says what 256C or something. It's actually got 512 megs of RAM installed. Okay, here we go. It should make a noise if it actually works. This is how you be mean to Windows 7, because this thing's only got, at least theoretically, it only has 512 megabytes of RAM. Windows 7 Ultimate. So, at least so far, and there's that blasted telephone again, at least so far it is actually working. Which, if you look at how grunty this thing is, it's really quite the surprise. In fact, look at that. We'll take the cover off and have a closer look at some of this in just a minute. But it's really dirty. Okay, we don't have any drivers installed, so this is probably... Shut up. No one cares. This is probably a clean installation of Windows, if I had to guess. No drivers, no nothing really installed, just maybe a test to see if this would work. It looks fairly clean anyways. Wow, the time and date is actually correct. Oops, would help if I actually show it on camera, wouldn't it? So, let me go get a mouse, and we'll investigate this further. Okay, well, it works. Pentium 4 2.4, 512 megs of RAM, 32-bit. This machine, based on the computer name, came from exactly the same place as this one did. And given the massive number of computers they have, they probably just did a mass upgrade from systems that are, Pentium 4 machines, because they were all P4s, with the exception of one. So, let's see. How many unknown devices do we have? Probably basically everything. Oh, just the audio. Interesting. And the video. Obviously, the video is not... Actually, it probably... No, the video driver is installed, but the video driver is not... I forget. WDDM something compatible. I think it's 1.1. WDDM 1.1. So, it will not support the Windows Aero glass theme. You just get this boring, basic crap. But like I said, I'm not keeping this Windows install. I'm not gonna, I don't think I said that, but I'm not keeping the Windows install. I am purely going to run... I don't know what I'm going to use this for. I may use it as yet another Windows XP box. Heh. This copy of Windows is not genuine. Is that a surprise? Well, it isn't to me. So we'll go ahead and shut that off. And I'll hit it with boot and nuke later. Because I'm not keeping... Even though it's Windows 7 Ultimate, I don't care. I have an Windows 7 Ultimate key for it, but I don't want it or need it. So, let's take a closer look at this system. Move the mouse out of the way. I know, I'm doing this backwards. Usually I show off the internals and talk about it before I power it on, but I just figured, well, I was anxious. I really wanted to see if this thing actually worked, given how grunty it is. And it's definitely going to be getting a good cleaning before I do anything with it. So let's flip it around here. We can take a look at the back. These are very, very nice machines, which is why I picked it up for probably a little bit too much at $10, but oh well. It's better than a lot of the other P4 systems there that were $15. I'm to the point now where paying really much of anything for a Pentium 4 is not really worth it, but hey, I wanted to get one of these things again because, well, it's a neat thing to experiment with, the small form factor systems. I'm not generally a big fan of SFF computers because they tend to have cooling problems and other various problems that the towers didn't have. There we could see the power supply and its vents with some rust. Yeah, there's some rust on the outside of that. Which is interesting because that one doesn't have rust on it. At least not as far as I know. I didn't really look for any of it. I miss the days when computer manufacturers color-coded their I/O port labels. So we could see they're all color-coded based on the, what standard was that? PC99 or PC98, something like that. You have PS2 ports for the keyboard and the mouse, which is something nice to have. You don't see that anymore. We have two serial ports, one over here and one over there. Parallel printer port. VGA, Ethernet, probably only 100 megabit compatible. USB, very likely only USB 1.1. In fact, I think that the D510 was the first one to come with USB. I don't think the D500 had USB. Or if it did, it was even earlier than this. I can't really remember. It's been a while since I've worked on these, if you can't already tell. We've got a... I forget what the color coding for these is. That's a line out, I presume. Line out and line in. It's got two PCI slots and an AGP slot, but this is a half-height PCI, or half-height AGP. I can't speak. It's only like 7 o'clock, and I've already lost all commands of the English language. But, anyways. It's got an AGP slot. I recall hearing something about how these couldn't support full-on graphics cards, but I don't know. It does have the AGP slot, though. This is upgraded. It's got a DVD... That is a DVD burner in there. That's probably worth more than the whole system. It has an honest-to-goodness floppy drive, like all real computers should have. Designed for Microsoft Windows XP. It has no COA on it, so somebody obviously ripped it off. And Pentium 4 sticker, because that's what it's got, obviously. You can see Compaq Evo. There's our power switch. Got two more USB ports on the front, and front panel audio. So, let's take a look at this sticker at the back here. See if we can see anything more. It's the Evo D510 small form factor, Pentium 4 2.4, 512 megs of RAM, 40 gigabyte hard drive. That's what it's got in it right now. It's a 40 gigabyte Western Digital. It would have originally come with a, looks like a CD-ROM drive and a floppy drive, but obviously that has been upgraded. So, let's take it apart. It's very easy to disassemble Compaq Evo systems of this time. There's two latches. There's one here and one over here. And once you undo those, which might take two hands, no, it won't. The cover lifts off. Toollessness is not done there. There you can see the price sticker and some obvious case rusting. Look at that. That's awful. Really surprises me that this thing works at all. But hey, I'm glad it does, especially for the price I paid for it. Toollessness, like I said, doesn't stop there. But before I get into that, we can see more rust here. There's the case speaker. There's an output for the power supply cooling. Fans in here. These were very interesting systems. And they took an interesting design path towards maintaining functionality while still having a small form factor case. It does only have one hard drive bay, which is right here. This pops out just like that. You can see the floppy drive, and the CD-ROM, and the hard drive. I want to point out something interesting about this. I don't know whether Compaq did this, or the previous owners did this. Given that nothing's really been upgraded, I presume that it was Compaq. But this is the... Actually, it couldn't have been. This would have been supplied by the previous owners. That would explain why it's jumpered for slave, because usually that's what they were jumpered for, because you'd have them on a multi-device channel, and usually optical drives end up as the slave device. I'm surprised to see that the CD audio connector's hooked up, but I'm also grateful to see that, because CD audio over the IDE bus, especially in a system as old as this, is awful. I remember when that was a big deal, and it was terrible when it first came out. Absolutely terrible. So, there's one thing. The hard drive, however, is jumpered for cable select, and it doesn't really make any sense to me why they wouldn't jumper it for a single drive, or they wouldn't jumper it for master. Which is what, 5 to 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, that would be the center one. The center one is master, and if you set it to none of them, it's single drive. I don't know why they didn't do that. It just doesn't really make sense to me. Here we've got some airflow guides. These are plastic. It looks like they're pretty well attached. This one might be a little messed up. Capacitors are all in good shape, at least the ones that I can see. No bulging tops or anything. Component keep out. I know that this thing could have a chassis intrusion switch, but this one doesn't have that. A couple other things. There's the CPU fan connector. Compaq processor board. Copyright 2001 to 2002 Compaq. The battery is probably relatively new, considering that it's a Panasonic battery and it's maintaining its settings. In order to get the PCI riser out to install any kind of card, you actually just simply lift it out. Or this would be a lot easier with two hands. Just comes out like that. We can see the two PCI slots. And I guess there is actually the chassis intrusion switch. Auxiliary CD audio and SCSI LED. Probably if you had a SCSI card installed, that would be for that. This, I'm guessing, is the chassis intrusion switch. So that's interesting. I thought there wasn't one, because there is a connector on the other side of the board. If we lift up the power supply, which again is it's gonna be a two-hand job, because it's rather stiff. Oh man, what? There we go. So we lift out the power supply, and we can see there's a hood lock connector there, which I would presume is probably for the chassis intrusion switch. So that's kind of interesting. Or maybe that's for an actual lock, as opposed to that, which lets the user know, hey, somebody's been in here. You should check all your peripherals and make sure they're still there. There's the south bridge. That is presumably an Intel 815 south bridge. I think it was an 815, or maybe it was an 810G or something like that. Off the top of my head. But you can see this thing is pretty well toolless. Anything that you would ever want to do, short of removing the motherboard and replacing it, and I think you could probably even do the motherboard toollessly. Well, maybe not. There's a screw right there that I imagine you'd have to remove. But for the most part, it's on a sled, so you could probably remove the motherboard very easily. Maybe even without tools, I don't know. But there's your system board. Password jumper. I see something interesting. but it doesn't actually have a jumper, so, interesting. So there's our two ATA channels. I think this thing is ATA 100, because I noticed that this does say U100 on it. Yeah, right there, it says U100. It's a 40 gigabyte Western Digital drive. Probably original of the system, especially considering it says spares on it. What else can I think of to say here? I wonder if you could just install a flat-out PCI card in that slot. I don't think so. That would be interesting. Nick SOS. That's kind of funny. I forget what that's used for, actually. There is a use for it, but I don't remember what it was. It's SFF riser board. InNet SCS. That's the connector for that. I presume this is USB 1.1. UXW Bill has a video of the Evo D500 and D510, I believe. Yeah, the D500 and D510. UXW Bill has got a video about those systems, and it will be more than detailed than this. There isn't really much else that I can think of to say, really. I think this takes DDR. Yes, it takes DDR, and it says 2.5 volt DDR memory only. So upgrading that might be a bit of a chore, but for what I plan on doing at 512 should be more than enough. And I know that on the Desk Pro, which is what the Evo replaced, the Desk Pro is limited to 512 megabytes of memory. That was an artificial limitation by the chipset, because Intel, that was an Intel thing. Intel wanted to promote their Rambus chipsets instead, because they saw it as superior, so they nerfed their SD-RAM chips. Well, that backfired on them in a big way, because, well, other chipset vendors like VIA and SIS, and presumably there were others, NVIDIA, they just ate Intel's lunch with that regard for years and years and years, and finally they relented. It might have even been with the 815 that I presume this is based on. Again, I should probably look all this up before spouting my mouth on the internet, but, well, I'm learning about as fast as you are. Like I said, it's been a while since I've worked on these. Both of these IDE cables are covered in some kind of white crap, and I don't really even want to know what it is. I'm sure that's going to get some interesting comments, but it looks like a glue of some kind. And I'm not quite sure what would cause that, where the glue would have come from. Seems kind of interesting to me. But there you can see all the cooling stuff. There is a CPU fan. It's a little tiny thing. Right in the front. Let's move this. This is really difficult to do. And I'm running out of storage space on my SD card, so I better make this quick. Here's the cooling fan. What is that, about an 80mm fan? I'm not a big fan of 80mm fans, but excuse the pun. But it works, I suppose. It doesn't sound too bad. Or maybe it's completely seized. I didn't really hear it come on. So anyways, there you go. There's your rusty but trusty Compaq Evo D510. I'll probably have some future videos of this system. Maybe an operating system installation, because a lot of people like to watch me install OSs on computers. I don't understand why. Ooh, dust. It's sticking to me. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then. Okay, so I decided to go into the BIOS and check some things out. See, D510 SFF, Pentium 4, 533 MHz front side bus, so probably a Northwood. You can see 512 megs of DDR memory. And I should see if there's an upgraded system ROM for this. I don't know if it's flashable. It should be. Because usually by the Pentium 4 days, most anything was flashable. Okay, so I misspoke. It's an Intel 845G chipset. I don't know where I got 815 from. But there we go, and there's some closure on the video. I don't think there's anything else that I need to talk about, other than the fact that Windows Genuine Disadvantage triggered and tried to prevent me from booting the system, or loading the operating system to this point, but I don't really care. I'm not keeping it anyways, so